From the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela, I'm Carla Gonzalez and this is From the South. The Supreme Court in Colombia has announced it will resume its investigation into Senator Alvaro Uribe. The former president is accused of bribery, procedural fraud, and witness tampering in a case linking him to right-wing paramilitaries. The court says it will also investigate another senator, Alvaro Prada, from Uribe's Centro Democratic Party, in connection with the same case. A peace negotiator from Colombia's ELN guerrilla says that the government lacks the political will to receive the prisoners held by the group. Eduardo Martinez said the National Liberation Army has been asking the government for weeks to create the conditions for a handover of the prisoners. He also said that he hoped the new government of Iván Duque would take into account the demands of the communities as it reevaluates the peace talks with the ELN.
Humanitarian commissions are essential for handing prisoners over to their families, because they were in territory controlled by us, and we will have wanted to have it done as quickly as possible, but they have constantly delayed implementing the protocols and failed to set it up, the humanitarian commissions, to make it effective.
Videos have emerged showing a large number of Venezuelan citizens in Peru gather outside their embassy in Lima, asking to be taken home. This video shows the long line of Venezuelans outside of the diplomatic mission. They said they wanted to be included in the Venezuelan government's plan called Return to the Homeland. Many of them chanted, "We want to leave."
We want to go back fast. There are Venezuelans here that are in the streets without food. We want to go back as soon as possible. I have small kids. Yes, we made a mistake to come here, but we want to go back.
I was told that here you could get a job, but when I arrived that didn't happen. If we don't have documents, we can't get jobs.
It
is not like everyone thinks, that with 100 soles you can buy groceries for a whole month. I had to come here to experience this. And that is why we are here today, to apply for the Return to the Homeland plan that President Maduro announced. That is why we're all here. More than 400 people want to go back.
In Caracas, Venezuela's communications minister spoke of the xenophobia and the poverty that many Venezuelans are experiencing in Peru.
Esto es lo que está pasando hoy, a las 10 de la mañana.
This is what was happening today at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Venezuelan embassy in Lima, capital of Peru. Desperate Venezuelans asking to be brought home. We have the video. This was happening just a few hours ago.
Eso está pasando a esta hora, hace unas horas, en Lima, Perú.
President Nicolás Maduro says that according to the government figures, 600,000 Venezuelans have migrated in the last 2 years. Maduro was providing an update on the progress of the economic recovery program. He called on the people of Venezuela to defend the government's efforts to restore a balanced economy. He invited those who have left Venezuela to return home and said that at least 90% of those who emigrate leave with money in their hands, often after selling property. He also explained the new measures for recovery are being developed without foreign interference.
The economic recovery program was created in Venezuela. This program is made with national talent, with advice and support from valuable people from around the world. But these measures are not like those imposed in Argentina, which are being imposed by International Monetary Fund. These are shameful economic measures imposed by Mauricio Macri on the Argentinian people. These people of Argentina are in the streets fighting. Today we saw them in the streets after the nefarious intervention of Mauricio Macri, who will go down in history as one of the most evil and criminal persons who have existed in the recent economic and political history of Argentina.
Venezuela's ambassador to the OAS has strongly rejected apparent threats against President Nicolás Maduro by the U.S. representative to the organization. In an exclusive interview with Telesur, Samuel Moncada referred to comments by Carlos Trujillo, where he suggested that Maduro's life could be in danger if he traveled to the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
He threatened the integrity of President Maduro, who is the head of a state of a member of the UN, a state recognized throughout the world, including the US, with whom we have an embassy. He threatened his physical integrity when he said that he don't know exactly if he could be arrested or not, or that he could be in danger if he dared to go to the United States. That is a threat to the physical integrity of a head of a state. It is a threat to international law, and this is a context where the president has already suffered an attempt of assassination, threatening the peace of the nation and peace in the Americas.
This event follows new austerity measures which have been announced in an attempt to stabilize the troubled economy. President Mauricio Macri laid out the changes in a televised address. More than half of the government ministries will be cut. Plus, there will be stiff taxes on exports to reduce budget deficits. This comes after last week's dramatic collapse of the currency.
I have made the decision to reduce the number of ministries to less than half of what we have now. Governments have different moments, and in each moment they require different teams.
Finance Minister Nicolás Duhovny says the government wants to achieve fiscal balance by 2019. Duhovny will travel to Washington to meet the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, on Tuesday. Let's remember that Argentina signed a $50 billion loan with the IMF. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, brings us more.
President Mauricio Macri has announced new measures to face the economic crisis. The government will cut down on the number of ministries in less than half in order to stabilize public spending and reduce the deficit. However, this will lead to massive layoffs. In the agro-industry ministry, 560 workers have lost their jobs in the past 24 hours. He also announced a tax on exports as an emergency measure to balance the accounts of the state. He said these were the worst 5 months of his administration after the country's currency has crashed to record lows. Finance Minister Nicolás Duhovny also announced other policy changes. He also said he will travel to the United States to hold meetings with the IMF to renegotiate new economic agreements in relation with the $50 billion standby finance loan they got from the financial institution.
Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
Queremos verdad, reparación integral, pero sobre todo justicia, pero justicia social.
How many ways there are to tell a story? The different perspectives of our nations are on Telesur documentaries. Sundays, only on Telesur.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
An investigation is underway into the causes of the fire that destroyed Brazil's National Museum on Sunday night. After firefighters put out the blaze, activists are now blaming the government of Michel Temer and its cuts to funding for culture. Police say the building lacked a sprinkler system and had suffered financial neglect. Brazil's culture minister says the blaze may have been caused by an electrical fault or by a hot air balloon landing on its roof.
I think it's essential that there be clarification about the causes of the fire, and at this time, the federal police are concentrated on that. We need to know exactly what happened and what caused this fire. After that, it will also be possible to clarify who is responsible and understand what exactly happened and who is responsible.
Museum curators have been the first to go through the ashes and collect the remains of the collection so that the artifacts wouldn't be confused with charred debris. The museum housed more than 20 million items, including Brazil's oldest human fossil and meteorites. The Education Ministry says the government will seek international help and spend $3.6 billion in rebuilding this collection.
I was in a rush to get in there because I knew how to recognize the meteorites. I knew where they were, so that I could try to recover some. They were brought out of the ashes like a real phoenix.
Bolivia's President Evo Morales and President of Peru Martín Vizcarra have met in the Bolivian city of Cobija. The two leaders met to discuss the construction of the bi-oceanic train and the cleaning of Lake Titicaca. With the summit, the two countries also expect to strengthen ties and cooperation in the development of the Amazon region. Let's go to our correspondent in Bolivia, Freddy Morales, with the details.
The President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, and the President of Peru, Martín Vizcarra, have finished the 4 binational cabinet in the Bolivian city of Cobija. From the year 2015, this cabinet raises solutions to the problems of its extensive common border of about 1,200 kilometers. The ministers of both states also met during the weekend. The heads of states have reviewed previous agreements and also signed new ones. The project of a bi-oceanic train stood out. This train would join the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean with a corridor that will pass through Bolivia in an extension of almost 3,700 kilometers. It will demand almost $14 billion of investment. They also discussed security issues, integration, economic development, and environment. The two countries share Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world.
The outgoing Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto gave his final State of the Union address on Monday. Peña Nieto said that he's optimistic that Mexico will reach a three-way deal with the United States and Canada on the North American Free Trade Agreement. Peña Nieto admitted his government had not been able to improve security for Mexicans. As he leaves office, Mexico continues to see inequality, cartel violence, high levels of violence against women, attacks on journalists, and rampant corruption.
In a complex scenario, after a long and arduous negotiation, we continue to promote a trilateral agreement because we are convinced of the importance of Canada remaining as a commercial partner within the treaty. North America is more successful when it stays together. It's better when each country contributes its strengths to make this the most attractive and competitive region in the world.
Residents from a town in El Salvador have set their streets on fire to celebrate the annual Fireball Festival. Participants pelted each other with rags drenched in gasoline, rolled into tight flaming balls. The festival commemorates a volcanic eruption that occurred in 1658. It is said that the hot lava that flowed from the volcano was actually the local patron, Saint Jerome, fighting the devil with balls of fire. In Cuba, about 2 million students are beginning the school year in more than 10,000 schools and 22 universities. During this new term, teachers and students will have an opportunity to participate in debates on proposed constitutional reforms in the country. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel spoke at an opening ceremony at the Rafael María de Mendive School. The building was re-inaugurated 150 years after Cuba's national hero, José Martí, studied at the institution.
That will require the joint efforts of teachers, directors and staff. I think it's an inspiring beginning of classes, and it's one of the things we assure every year at the beginning of September, that there are schools and teachers for all Cuban children.
Let's go to our correspondent, Alien Fernandez, with more details from Havana.
Hola, un gusto saludarte. Como tú adelantabas,
This will conclude a review of all the study plans, workshops for teenagers, and from there, they will apply the best practices. On this inaugural date in Havana, the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, said it was a jubilant day, since education is endured for all. Díaz-Canel has been working over the past day holding meetings alongside educational officials to address the issue due to the lack of teachers in some areas of the country and work on resigning the current structure with the teachers they have. Recently, the World Bank said Cuba was the country that spent the most on education, with close to the 13% of the GDP, and more than 1 million of its students have graduated from the university.
We'll take a short break, but stay with us.
Me gustaría tener un mundo mucho más inclusivo para todos.
没有贫穷.
Στην ανθρωπότητα θα ήθελα να δω παραπάνω αγάπη, αγνότητα, πολιτισμό και επαφή με τη φύση.
Que el ser humano despierte su conciencia.
I want humanity to see itself as one humanity.
We are the people, a space, a voice. We are Telesur without borders.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Labor Day was observed in the United States on Monday, with marches taking place all across the country. Thousands of Kaiser Permanente workers marched in the city of Oakland, protesting against plans for employee outsourcing at the healthcare giant. The company's planned cuts include outsourcing pharmacy warehouse workers and licensed vocational nurses in California. Workers said that the hospital has additional plans to fire these workers.
We're here because Kaiser's wants to outsource a lot of jobs. My job in particular is in jeopardy. They want to outsource our warehouse, so we're here to let them know they're not going to do it without a fight.
The West Indian Day Parade has taken to the streets in Brooklyn, New York, as part of the Labor Day holiday. The annual carnival celebrates the culture of several Caribbean countries, from Trinidad to Jamaica. People fill the streets with costumes and soca music. New York City is home to the largest Caribbean population in the world outside of the Caribbean itself.
Today when we march out of pride for the community you come from, march out of pride in this great city, but also march to send a message to Washington that we are a city proud of all the people who make up New York City, aren't we? We are proud to be a great city of immigrants, aren't we? We're not weaker because of immigration, we're stronger because of immigration.
Delegates at the China-Africa Cooperation Summit have made a call to strengthen relations. Our correspondent Isaura Diaz was there and brings us the details.
During the China-Africa Cooperation Summit, President Xi Jinping has announced 8 measures the Asian giant will undertake over the next 3 years to provide $60 billion in financing to strengthen the relationship with the African continent. Among the measures are industrial development, improving infrastructure, increased imports of African products, reinforce cultural exchange, and safeguard peace and health in the continent. Xi Jinping emphasized that bilateral relations must be developed under South-South cooperation strategies and are based on mutual respect. No preconditions and no selfish or political-minded interest. The president also promoted synergy within the strategies and aligning the goals of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union with those of the Belt and Road Initiative. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa praised the achievements of the Chinese-African cooperation over the past 18 years and criticized comments made by some nations that said these bilateral relations are a new form of colonialism. Nonetheless, President Ramaphosa welcomed the announcement by President Xi Jinping and showed his support for the Belt and Road Initiative, which could provide more export options for the continent, since most of the current exports are for raw material only. The summit will run until Tuesday.
At least 8 people have been killed in an explosion at a munitions factory near Cape Town in South Africa. The fire at the Rheinmetall Denel munition depot has been contained, but the emergency services have been searching the building for any injured people. The cause of the blast is yet not known. According to eyewitnesses, the explosion was so strong that it shook nearby houses. People in Rwanda have gone to the polls to elect members of parliament. In this story, we'll tell you how more than 500 candidates from 5 political parties and 4 independent candidates are taking part in this election. The voting will take place over the next 3 days at 2,500 polling stations across the country. Political analysts say the ruling Rwandan Patriotic Front will take the majority of the seats. At least 400 prisoners have escaped from a prison in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. The inmates forced open the doors of the Ain Sara prison, outnumbering the guards. The prisoners were reportedly terrified by heavy fighting that was taking place around them. The UN-backed Libyan government has declared a state of emergency in this capital. And we end in Germany, where tens of thousands of people attended a concert protesting against the far right in Chemnitz. The peaceful protest called We Are More was organized after a week of far-right and anti-fascist demonstrations. The tensions broke out in the East German city due to recent confrontations.
We are not a far-right city. The majority of the population is totally normal, democratically civilized, but not far-right. For God's sake, we don't want that. We don't want such people.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all our stories, our videos, and all our top news for today as well. And you can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.